Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Top 10 edition of Magic Mike's, proudly sponsored by our Patreon supporters and CoolStuffInc.com, where you can find cool stuff in stock every day. I'm Evan Irwin, and we get started on these Top 10s by saying hello to my two co-hosts, Aaron Campbell.
Hey.
And Ruben Bressler.
Oh, greetings.
Hey, buddy.
Mortals. How you doing?
How's the Bresslers? How's them doing?
They're great. They are. They're extra waterlogged this week.
Wow.
Because Comic-Con, with all the spoilers and all the teaser trailers and everything, I've been every 15 minutes there's another teaser trailer for another thing I like coming out, and
my God.
It's just Ruben too busy's learn.
You don't like it when you don't like it when your wrestlers get teased? Is that what's going on here?
I like it on occasion, but not like every 15 minutes for 4 days in a row. It's a bit. It makes me. It chafes.
There's a level of usage.
It abrades my wrestlers.
Wow.
Okay.
It stores the
The
artifacts.
technical definition of the word abrade, which is to erode slowly over time.
I'm used to people that have that kind of supreme will that can endure that type of thing, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Okay, fair
Yeah.
enough. Evan, I'm sorry, Doomfall has no pun here.
Ruminap.
I couldn't think of
I was going to say
Ramunap.
Rapum Nabum Tetancommon.
Ramunap orangutan.
Words out of my face hole. All right, so we start each top 10 by talking
Start each top 10 by going off on a tangent for 20 minutes. Sorry,
that's what we do here. Well, for those who watch the video on YouTube and who leave us a comment, we're going to choose our favorite comment each week to get a $50 CoolStuffInc.com gift certificate. And Ruben, will you please tell us who won the gift certificate this week?
Absolutely. This week, the winner is Julian Corvin, whose username is Jamie Less Maths, who commented, adding to the love for the members of the Innistrad Utility Land Cycle, which includes the mentioned Nephalia Drownyard and Kessig Wolf Run, Gavany Township is one of my favorite lands in any green-white weenie strategy, e.g. humans. It may not be the most innovative effect or instant game over, but it gives the strategy reach in the mid to late game and just provides so much fun trying to pile up a cajillion glass beads on every creature you have.
That's awesome.
Cajillion.
Yeah. And that's an amazing pick. I love that land.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's a great land. It has success in Modern for forever. Was pretty powerful in Standard. I've even seen a copy or two on occasion in Legacy.
No.
Depending on the strategy, you know, when Maverick makes a comeback, or you know.
There was a Legacy Classic this past weekend, and somebody came in second place with Legacy Death Shadow.
Ooh, wow.
No.
I mean, it's a one man
That's
at
awesome.
13-13. The card is just stupid. Like, okay.
12-12.
What? Well, 12.
Was it running Toxic Deluge or something like that, or
I don't
what are the
recall.
things that got added?
That's a pretty sick
I
one.
mean, it was your Deathrite Shamans, it was your Surgical
Sure.
Extractions, it was your Nile Spell Bombs. Of course, I only looked at the graveyard.
Yeah.
So this week's top 10 comes from our viewers who said, hey, maybe you should do top 10 flavor ticks. And I was like, that's a great idea. It's very varied. We only have a few that are actually running into each other this week, which is really sweet. And but first, we have to tackle our honorable mentions. And I've got a million, but we only get 4. So, Aaron, would you tell us what your honorable mentions are for this week?
So I'm going to start with my first one. The first one I chose is a quote that goes along with a very beautiful piece of artwork by Therese Nielsen. It is Enter the Infinite from Gatecrash, and it's Niv Mizzet. And the quote is, don't just have an idea, have all of them. And I'm just like, oh, that is so great. And like, you know, to me, it just reeks of blue. And the whole, you know, we have cards that, you know, brainstorm, and we have ponder and inspiration, and blue is sort of all about getting ideas. But you know, this is really the first card where it's like, instead of just getting one idea, get every idea, and just, you know, the limitless potential of the is it. And it's just so flavorful. And I just imagine it, you know, for those of you who played World of Warcraft, I think of a Nexus Prince Shafar from the Manitombs, and I just hear it with that booming voice of like, have all of them. And I'm like, oh, I just love it. It's just such a great text.
Yeah. It really just fits with the over-the-top ability of the card. Also.
Yeah.
I really like. I like how that one matches up with the card.
Yeah, and again, the art is just beautiful. So my second one I chose is my new favorite commander. I recently built a Sharum the Hegemon list, which I love. And so I've been kind of going through cards that can go in that deck. And one of the cards that somebody suggested to me is Time Sieve. I think it's called Sieve, right? Sieve?
Time Sieve, it is.
Sieve. I don't know if I was pronouncing it right. But Sharum says, I pray that I am never considered useless or old. And it's like, I mean, same. Like,
Wow.
like Sharum is just the kind of person that it's like she's the every woman. It's like I think that's something we, particularly as women, sort of fear is, we don't want to be seen as, we especially don't want to be seen as like infirm or unattractive or useless, and just especially somebody who, the flavor of the card is all about kind of winding back time, and so kind of acknowledging that fate might happen to you. This flavor text really rang true for me. My third choice is Feeling of Dread from Innistrad, because it's true. I mean, like, people only say I'm sure it was nothing when they're sure it was something. Have you ever said that card when it was nothing? No, you say it because you want it to
that's
not
fabulous.
Be. Yeah.
That's a
the
brilliant
artwork
turn of
is
phrase.
Great.
Yeah,
the flavor is great, and so that's why this was my third choice. And my last choice is just so freaking funny. I chose Showstopper. From Uncommon.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
So it says, the audience quickly realized a few things. It wasn't a magic trick, there wasn't candy in there, and they'll need new clothes. And it basically just shows this clown, like, exploding two people.
it's pretty insane.
Just so fun.
Classic Rakdos.
Classic Rakdos. And it's just something that, between the artwork, between the pose of the guy and the flavor text, it's just gold. And so those are my honorable mentions.
There's not a lot to love about Dragon's Maze, but, at least the art was kind of ridiculous, and the flavor was nice.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot beyond that.
Yeah.
But, Ruben, what's your honorable mentions for this top 10?
What doesn't grow dies, and what dies grows the Tarmogoyf.
Yes.
Tarmogoyf from Modern Masters. The original Tarmogoyf didn't have a flavor text.
Yeah.
And it's tough to bust into this list of premiering your flavor text in a Modern Masters set, but boy howdy, Tarmogoyf did it. It's a pretty classic one at this point, even though the first Modern Masters was only a couple of years ago. People already use that as like sort of a way to refer to Tarmogoyf, so I really, really like that one. Rishada is the gateway to free trade, but the key will cost you, is the flavor text for Rishadan Port.
Nice.
And I've always sort of connected with that in like, yeah, that's the perfect way to describe a pirate city. Like that's what I'm thinking, right? Like it's a really it describes Las Vegas really well also, which is like, hey, everything's free here, but you got to fly here to get the hotel, and you got to lose some money at the tables before you get the free drinks.
Yeah.
I really liked both of those flavor texts, and those are both really highly tournament played cards.
It's true.
Enormous Baloth, not so much. Enormous Baloth, not exactly the most tournament played card in the history. Originally an uncommon from Legions, but when you're a vanilla creature, you gotta fill up that flavor text with some stuff. And we've got some all-stars with flavor texts with no other text other than flavor text, which I got a couple on my list, I think. Its diet consists of fruit, plants, small woodland animals, large woodland animals, woodlands, fruit groves, fruit farmers, and small cities. I just like how it just like starts out like a textbook and then just gets absurdly ridiculous at some point.
Just starts eating just everything, all of the things.
And my last honorable mention is I really like the borrowing of historical texts. For back in like 5th edition, I think they used to do this in like 4th edition, 5th edition, The Dark. They used to borrow from classics. They used to borrow phrases from actual works of literature. And the one that always comes to mind for Shakespeare, Coleridge,
the Quran and the Lariat Midnights.
Yeah, there you go.
The thing.
Yeah.
The one that always comes up for me is in the Rime of the Ancient Mariner on Scathed Zombies, which we'll see if I can just do from memory here. I think it's, they groaned, they stirred, they all uprose, nor spake nor moved their eyes.
Spake.
It had been strange, even in a dream.
In a dream to see those dead men rise. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's another really good example of Thunder Spirit, which borrows from a novel describing a train. but it describes the Thunder Spirit really well as well. So I thought that was a fun little callback. I really love when Magic the Gathering is able to use real life phrases in the flavor texts.
Sure. I mean Thunder Spirit was from Watership Down by Richard Adams.
From Watership Down, yes.
Right.
One of the classic novels a long time ago. And Watership Down has nothing to do with Thunder Spirits or anything like that. But it's just this. It's just the narrator's version of what they see when a train is the first train they've ever seen is coming, but then was used for the Thunder Spirit, which I thought was a really clever use of descriptive flavor text.
That's pretty cool. So, do you have any more honorable mentions, or was that all of them?
Nope, that's it.
All right. So I have so many that just were right. We're right there, but I can't. But look, the rule is we have rules. We need to follow them.
I have flavor text that I love that we won't bring up on this show that maybe won't get honorable mentions.
Maybe we'll talk about it one day. But right now, my 4. Let's start with a card from Stronghold. A little card called Foul Imp. Foul Imp has a ridiculous flavor text of the imp, unaware of its own odor, paused to catch its breath and promptly died. I love the simpleness of it, and it's cute, and it just works with the name, and it's like this super grody looking dork that's like flying. It's great. So next up is a card from Odyssey, a little white card that you could 2-mana 2/2. I think you could discard a card to give it first strike.
Oh yes.
This card's called Patrol Hound. And Patrol Hound's flavor text says, to the camp, it was a fierce and loyal protector. To the century's youngest daughter, it would always be her love muffin.
I still can't believe that made it onto a card.
Hashtag love muffin.
Hashtag love muffin. It's just love muffin. I can't handle the love muffin. And it's like,
there are a couple that are like that where it's just like, how did this make it into the set? I'm so happy it made it into the set.
Yeah.
But how? How did this make it into the set?
The whole way.
They were really footloose and fancy free during those Odyssey days with their flavor text.
God bless them.
Oh yeah, that was when you had the root of all Grievals and all this other crazy stuff, Adam.
Right.
Yeah.
So getting a little bit more on the serious side, I guess, more sort of inspirational side. There's a little 3-drop from Lorwyn that is the sexiest 05 to ever 05. Doran the Siege Tower.
I love that flavor text.
His flavor text says, each year that passes rings you inwardly with memory and might. Wield your heart, and the world will tremble.
Oof.
That's just, it's just like you say that in front of crowds and it just happens, just energy, and just like super inspirational.
It's a great thing for the Siege Tower to say to his forces. It's like exactly what you want in a leader.
It's so good. The rings, man. The rings.
And the rings. Obviously, you're a tree person. The rings are going to ring true.
Hey, watch yourself.
That's
the
like
eyebrows?
a C
That's the punchline indicator.
C minus.
Jesus. Okay, so this next one was brought to my attention by Mr. Magic Man Sam, who obviously makes amazing videos these days. And there's a card that when it first came out, just like Tarmogoyf, had no flavor text. Came back in Morningtide. Bold Weir Intimidator is a card that turns guys into cowards and warriors, and it has the most beautiful flavor text that just wraps it in a bow. The flavor text is now everyone knows what you are.
Yeah.
And it's just, you can make guys warriors, you can make them cowards, and then everyone knows what they are. It's just, it's beautiful. Right. It's just, I love it. It just packages it so nicely.
If we were to ever do a top 10 rules text that behaves like flavor text, cowards can't block warriors is like top 5.
Oh god,
right?
So good.
Like right along with the land continues to burn, and there are a couple others that are in there that are just like the most flavorful. Like this creature can block 99 additional creatures. Like right there in that, like using rules text as flavor text.
Yeah, it's super.
It's like it has 2 flavor texts
for the price of 1. Yeah. So let's move on here to number 10. Ruben, what is your number 10 flavor text?
All right, to kick us off, my number 10 is so for Enter the Infinite, or it was Enter the Infinite. We talked about the coming together of art, of flavor text, of story, and just all coming together perfectly. And that's where my number 10 is. My number 10 is Blessed Spirits from Origins. Not all heroes die in armor. And the art is just two dead kids coming through a stained glass window in spirit form. And you're like drafting, and it's like, I came here to draft. I didn't come here to feel. Origins. How dare you?
God, the feels.
Yeah, it was so like, and it's never referenced like anywhere else.
No.
This is a wholly encapsulated story in one uncommon from Origins.
Man.
And the sentence, "Not all heroes die in armor," is just like, every time I read it, I'm just like, man, I was having such a good day. And then they reminded me of the horrors of real life, and it's just such a beautiful sentiment and such a tragic story wrapped up in one piece of cardboard.
It's terrific.
Yeah, I remember when the card came out, and I remember seeing the outcry from people who, don't even normally comment on art or flavor text, or who don't even normally care about that, and, we've seen sort of the hashtag MTG Dad kind of pop up of guys in our community, and I will never forget the outcry from people that were like, how could you do this? And like, is this going too far? And like, there was some interesting discussion that came about because of that card.
Wow.
Yeah.
For as a parent, it gets you.
As a human, it's heartbreaking.
Absolutely. But to see the kids and the thing
I don't
and die in
have any
armor
kids
and the horrors
that I
of
know
war and that you know of. Any wrestlers out there, saggy or no?
Wrestling.
Some hidden wrestlings.
Aaron, what is your number 10?
So I feel like this is a perfect time to lighten up the mood, coming off of that card and the flavor text.
Sorry.
Wow, way to bring us down, bro.
Funny, right? So my number 10 is Noggle Bridgebreaker, which is from Eventide, and it says, "It's always funny till someone gets hurt, then it's hilarious." And it's just, I mean, who hasn't had those thoughts? I mean, it's just so sassy, it's so snarky. It very much ties into the spirit of Noggles, which I believe are goblins. Are they
like
not?
weird.
Noggles are donkey people.
Donkey people. Wow. Like I wasn't around for that, but I remember seeing the card and I was like,
they are a blue-red aligned. I think every Noggle is blue-red hybrid.
Blue-green, isn't it?
Wow.
Is it blue-green?
Blue-green, yeah.
They're blue-red. This one's blue-red.
Oh, okay. I think they're blue-green and blue-red Noggles, but I'm not sure. But
But I think they're all hybrid creatures.
Yeah, they're all hybrid
and they're all
weirdos.
just like gangly bipedal donkey people.
How cool is that? But the text is just so funny. Like, I don't care who you are, and it's a good time.
So my number 10 here is not necessarily serious. I think it's a really great sort of quippy line of, it puts you in a scene and it puts you in a mode, and I think what it did for the set and the actual setup was terrific. There's a card in Theros called Fabled Hero, and the flavor text is, "You, poet, be sure to write this down." And it's just so awesome. It puts you can hear him saying it, on the card. He's doing this like majestic move or whatever. It's it's beautiful. I love how it came together, which is really sweet. So Fabled Hero from Theros is my number 10. Let's move on here to number 9. Aaron, what's your number 9?
So my number 9 involves something that we don't often see in this game. At least I don't think we do. And this card, I think, just nails it perfectly. Irony. My number 9 is a Leashling from Ravnica City of Guilds, constructed of leather and irony. And for those who aren't looking at the art, it's literally a golem made out of leashes. Like, it's a pet. Made out of leashes,
yeah.
Wow.
I love it. It's a 3/3. You put a card in your hand, bounce it. It's just so great. The flavor text is so quaint, and again, sort of the art ties it all together. Where you're like,
I think when
I see, yeah.
When like the cylinders either all fire, whether it's like classic line or the way they write it or whatever. But when the art and the flavor work, it's kind of magical when it really syncs up.
But I still feel like this card, again, there are some people that just don't catch it. Kind of like irony.
Right.
You're looking at it, you're like, I don't get it. And it's like, and then there are people that look at it and they're like, the light bulb goes
that's like rain on my wedding day. And then somebody else is just like, it's a free ride you didn't take. Am I right? And then and then everybody starts going.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's the nature of satire. Some people, like, you need it requires a certain level of intellect because sometimes it's just, you're at the train station, the train's already gone. So
what was your number 9, Ruben?
My number 9, doesn't have that connection with the art, I don't really think. I guess it connects with the name a little bit, but it certainly connects 100% with what the card does. My number 9 is Grafted Skullcap from 7th edition.
Oh, yes.
Now, Grafted Skullcap was originally in Urza's Saga and had a different flavor text that was much more in line with the storyline of Urza's Saga.
Right.
It was basically Yawgmoth saying, I think it was to Baron, let your mind go because mine's better, or something like that. But the 7th edition flavor text, without the story, just perfectly matches up with what Grafted Skullcap does. Every day, I fight for my life and win. Every night, I fight to remember my name and lose.
Wow.
And it matches up perfectly with what Grafted Skullcap does, which is you draw an extra card every turn and discard your hand at the end of every turn. I just think that it's a complete win in terms of matching what the card does and turning that into a story element, and I really like it a lot.
Very nice. Well, I can kind of follow that up with my own number 9, which comes from Mirrodin, and was one of those classic callbacks. Like, when they did Mirrodin, they this is the artifact set, and let's make the artifact set, and they never really made one before. They wanted to call back to some classic ones, and Gilded Lotus has some amazing flavor text that says, over such beauty wars are fought, with such power wars are won. And I think I loved it. It was very majestic.
It's a great flavor
Very
text.
Helen of Troy.
Yeah, very powerful, it was really sweet. And I think it did that card justice in the way they wanted it to.
Yeah.
Which was sweet. So let's move on here to number 8. And I'll kick off number 8 because it's one of my obviously it's one of my favorite flavor texts, but this one's really sweet. Card in Tempest. Now in Tempest, they were very much telling the story. They're telling the story. The story is the thing. Here's the characters. The characters are doing stuff, and on Aluren, Squee bounced up and down. I sees a horsey and a piggy, and if you don't shut up, hissed Miri, you'll see a kidney and a spleeny. And I love it. It's a scene. It's just like the setup. It's the payoff. It's just right there. It's the characters. Like there were a few moments where I loved the Weatherlight stuff, and this was definitely one of them.
That's another one that's so whimsical. I'm glad it's on a card, but that's also, I think, a level of whimsy that we just don't see on cards anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is great. So, so number 8, Ruben, what you got for us?
He exercises his right to bear arms.
Oh no!
Come on, man!
Wow.
Werebear, original Werebear from Odyssey. It has to be on the list. There are a lot of pun flavor texts.
Mm-hmm.
This is the creme de la creme. This is like the one you point to. It's this and Root Greevel are the two you point to, which are from the same era. But this one is just like always has been, especially because Werebear was a card that was played so heavily in Blue-Green Madness, and then later in the original versions of Canadian Threshold, pre-Tarmogoyf era. This was this flavor text was all over the tournament scene all the time, and it was just such an easy thing to just roll off the tongue. I think that this is just the perfect example of a pun card. You can like puns or not, and that's okay. But if you love puns, this is the Hall of Fame.
This was the era of Mark Rosewater wrote a lot of flavor text, and you can tell.
Did he? I didn't know that.
Oh yeah.
I didn't know that.
And a lot of the super silly punny type stuff from that era is very Rosewatery, which is fun. So Aaron, what do you have on your number 8?
Well, it's a good thing that he didn't keep doing that. Otherwise, he would be in a rose-watery grave. So,
wow.
Good job.
Jeez. Whoa. C-.
So my number 8 is one of my favorite cards of all time, if not the favorite card of all time. When the task spilled over into Undeath, he stopped calling it his life's work.
Nice.
Ad nauseum, which is great.
It's such a good flavor text.
It's just such a good flavor text because, again, it's like it also, it ties into the flavor of the card. You're literally drawing cards until you get very low. You might even kill yourself, or if you're playing the namesake deck, you will go past killing yourself. You will go into the negatives. And so at that point, you're going into unlife. You're going into death. And, you look at the guy on the card who's just working and working and working, and he has plates in his back and plates as he's still going. And it's just a win on every front, and I love the text so much.
And the other thing about that card with the flavor text is that you remove the flavor text and everything is so dour and like creepy and sad. Like this guy but the flavor text adds a little bit of that whimsy, a little bit of that, like, this is a really dark card, but we got a little bit of humor, so
Yeah, some of the dark humor, if you will, for sure.
Pretty dark humor.
That's, I mean, that image is disturbing with the nubs and the pins.
And it's one of those pieces of art that every time I look at it, I feel like I notice something different. Where I notice the tape holding back the eyes, I notice the Dimir signet stuck in the dude's head, I notice the inkwell coming from his veins. That's blood he's writing with, and I feel like I notice something different every time, and that says something about good art.
That's terrific. So let's move on here to number 7. Ruben, what is your number 7?
Number 7 for me is another totally blank slate that the flavor text writers had to do something with. You have this huge, comparatively huge space to create a story. And Canyon Minotaur from M10 really pays off.
Yeah.
If you have it, Evan, if you'd like to, we can do an impromptu improv version here. Where I will be playing the portion. I'll play the portion of the captain.
Okay.
And then you will be playing the portion of the other person who doesn't know of the existence of the Canyon Minotaur. So
go for it.
So we'll scale these cliffs, traverse the brittle bridge, and then we'll fight our way down the volcanic slopes on the other side.
Isn't the shortest route through the canyon?
Yes.
So shouldn't we?
No.
That's it.
It's such a good short story because they're just trying to avoid this Canyon Minotaur, and they also don't reference the Minotaur at all, which I think is the perfect. It's just such a good for just a random. It literally is Hill Giant. It's 3 colorless and a red for a 3/3 with no abilities, and somehow that flavor text really just comes through.
I have to bring up one of my near misses, which is very similar. A card called Wave of Indifference from Onslaught, which starts with Darius. Yeah, there's a goblin sneaking up on you. So, just saying. And it's wonderfully put. It's just wonderfully builds a scene, and you could hear them doing it, and I love that. That's amazing. Yeah. So, Aaron, what is your number 7?
So this one I have related to many times in my life. As we know, I'm a very passionate woman. And love is like a rhino, short-sighted and hasty. If it cannot find a way, it will make a way. And that is Crash of Rhinos.
Yeah.
I'm currently in love. I've certainly been in love before, and I think anybody who's been in love can certainly attest to that feeling of just wanting to be with somebody. That sort of short-sightedness, hastiness. I don't care if I have to work in the morning. I don't care how much money we spend this weekend. I don't care. I just want to be with you, and sort of that need, and sort of just it feels like it's crashing down on you. When you feel that way, and when you start to feel that way, and I just really relate to this card, especially where I am in life now, and just looking back on my past, it's like, yeah, it really does feel like when you meet that person, you're just crashing into them literally. It's just it's very, very meaningful.
Yeah. Right. Dave Matthews wrote a whole album about it. Turns out they did.
Little did you know that song's full title is Crash parentheses of Rhinos parentheses into me.
Oh man, if there's ever like a magic Weird Al type album, that needs to be one of the tracks.
Nice.
So come on and Crash of Rhinos, yeah.
I feel like at least moving forward, I want to first say the flavor text, and then we'll get to the card, because I think it's so much fun that way, and that's just me personally. Sure. Because my next one, just to run it out there, is a quote from someone screaming, or maybe a creature, that says, "The enemy is getting too close! Quick, inflate the toad!" Which is from Goblin Balloon Brigade from M11. Inflate the toad!
Quick! Everyone inflate the toad. Yeah.
Oh, God.
How can you be? You're inflated toad. I can't handle it. There's a big toad.
The art too is just this giant.
God, it's beautiful.
Giant toad,
yeah, it's terrific.
I think most Goblin cards, like just going through, I was going through Gatherer of the United. I think like 75% of the Goblin cards are just win. Like,
oh yeah, they're hilarious. It was so hard to pick one, but I was like, I can't. This one I love more than all the rest of them.
Yeah,
there
are a couple
terrific.
Of Toad-centric cards. I'm pretty sure there's more Toad-related flavor text than there is Toad cards.
I agree with that.
I mean, one of my other favorite flavor texts that was a narrow miss was Chub Toad at the door, run away quick, or run that was another close miss for me.
Right.
But there's like that, and then like 3 other Toads, and then there's like 50 flavor texts relating to Toad technology that the goblins use. Of like, this needs more Toad, and like various other Toad-related
Toad-esque, Toad-ish type.
Toadish, yeah. Toad-adjacent technology from the goblins. I mean, they use what they have at hand. So they put sticks and leaves and toads, and that's what you got.
So I'm going to move into number 6, and this is one of those that I have a 100% certainty that Ruben knows what card this is. It's very short. Hatred outlives the hateful.
Ooh.
That would be from Rancor, common from Urza's Legacy.
That's right.
Favorite set, so of course it's got to be on there. Yeah, that's a great one.
It's so good. It's tight, succinct, awesome. The image works with it. The feeling, it's amazing.
Yeah, angry Multani with his big tree muscles, just like being like, "Come at me, bro." Yeah, man, that's Multani, isn't it?
I think so.
I think it's like corrupted Multani. There was a point during the Urza storyline where everything was like, this is Act 2 of 3. Everything is going to hell in a handbasket, right? And all of our heroes are turning into villains.
To be fair, that could be most Magic sets. I mean,
that's fair. On. Yeah. No, I agree with that. But definitely in Urza's Legacy, it was just like, this is when Argoth was destroyed. Like, this is when the Gaia's Cradle was no more.
Tolarian Academy was destroyed.
Tolarian Academy was destroyed. So the Subversion was happening. There's a card called Subversion that shows the time bubble stretching across the wasteland, and it affected people, and it affected Multani. And boy, Rancor is a rough. If you know the story, it's a rough card to look at. But even beyond that, hatred outlives the hateful, and being able to return to your hand after it goes to your graveyard is just a super flavorful connection between the flavor text and the effect of the card.
Yeah, so sweet. And the Subversion, for what it's worth, because I did history programs on it, was amazing. Like the story idea that you can have like a bubble of space and time works differently in that bubble. So like one person could, you're in this bubble and it's 5 times faster than normal speed, and so. What are you supposed to do when you're competing with someone who can go 5 times faster than you by default?
Well, that reminds me of the flavor text of No Mercy. They say something along the lines of, we had so many years to prepare and they had minutes. And,
exactly. Yeah. Which was super sweet. So, Aaron, tell us what your number 6 happens to be.
So my number 6 is a piece of flavor text that could have easily come from me. Like, if I didn't even, you would just hear this and be like, that's an Aaron Campbell card. That's something Aaron Campbell would say.
Yeah.
Home is where you can find a decent graveyard, and strangers can disappear without awkward questions. Braid's Cabal Minion. I mean...
Nice.
What more could you possibly want? I mean, it's just so great.
Hashtag necromancer goals.
Right.
Look, all I want to do is raise a family in peace.
Right. It's like, you want a white picket fence around your graveyard.
Raise a family and the undead just in the same little vicinity.
Yeah. It reminds me of...
It's not his family that he's raising.
No.
Or that she's raising. It's...
Yeah. I remember seeing that quote once. There's a quote floating around Tumblr where it was like, it's really hard to raise a family, and someone's like, someone makes a comment about dead things, and you're like, what?
Necromancer says, boy, tell me about it.
Right.
Yeah.
What?
Ruben, what is your...
Sorry, it's really hard to raise a family. And then they're like, yeah, especially with all these grave diggers' cages. Sorry, I'll move on to my mistake. He raged at the world, at his family, and at his life. But mostly, he just raged. Raging Goblin. Originally from Starter 1999.
Woo!
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, our first starter card. Yeah, it's just like so succinct. And at this point, it's become like the go-to flavor text of like, this is what flavor text should be. It's a pretty blank space that they needed to fill. Raging Goblin does have haste, so, a little bit of area taken, but like, what else can you say?
Raging
Goblin.
He won a Grand Prix. Raging Goblin won a Grand Prix, was in a Grand Prix winning deck as a 4 of. Which whooped up on like the control decks at a time. They just couldn't handle that 1/1 haste. They just couldn't do it.
because it would come down turn 1 and just poke at him for 10, or would be like a halfway decent top deck after you got upheavaled or whatever.
Exactly. You could just drop them down. Yeah. Yeah, that was a weird format. It wasn't a great time. As far as I know. Anyway, so we're going to move on now to number 5, of which I can't share mine. It is higher on someone else's list.
Mine is also higher.
Seriously?
All of us have a number 5 higher on someone else's list? That's amazing.
We have no number 5s? That's amazing.
That's fantastic.
Dun, dun, dun.
We managed to avoid all hires in honorable mention and then 10 through 6, and then we're all higher at number 5. That's adorable.
I think this is the first for the show.
Yeah, absolutely. This is absolutely a first. This is hilarious. This is the fastest number ever as we go to number 4. That's awesome. So here I will kick off with another one, which I am, again, 100.0% sure that Ruben knows. It's a quote. "Sorry I burned down your village. Here's some gold."
Yeah, that'll be Reparations from Mirage.
Mirage, that's right.
Boy, is that a rough quote.
It's just
too real.
That's like, you know how All in the Family would never get on television if it were produced today, but it was like a hit show in the 80s?
Oh, yeah.
That's that quote. That would never pass R&D and D.
No.
No.
Back in the halcyon 90s.
Right.
Yeah. Sorry I stored all your crap. Here's a stack of money.
And that's another one that fits with the effect of the card. It fits with the art. It has that classic Mirage, like...
It's Doug Schiller, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. It has that. So that style is Mirage, right? Like that sort of like what's the word I'm looking for? Like tessellated. It looks like if you were drawing a still from a paused Halo screen with paint.
It's very vivid.
Right? It's got like it's like flat surfaces and lots of color and exactly.
Thick lines and like you can still see the signature of the artist, on the cards back then.
Right. Yeah. And it's and that flavor text, boy howdy, is just a punch in the gut.
It's so terrific. So let's go over here to Aaron. What is your number 4?
My number 4 is higher on somebody else's list. So.
Oh, okay. So Mr. Rubin, what is your number 4?
Hans, run! It's the Lurgoy. Sophie Eriksdotter, last words. I mean, so now we're getting to the point where I'm like, all of these flavor texts, for some reason, just like clicked with people and then spawned other things.
Sophie's a card.
Sophie Eriksdotter is a card. Lurgoyf is now a creature type. Yeah. Like, this card just spawned an entire creature type.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's just absurd to think that this random, 4-mana 0/1, I guess, was probably super unassuming when they released it.
Right.
And then became a good card, but the flavor text, outraced how good the card could possibly have ever been.
Yeah.
So,
having Safi actually get a card later was fantastic.
Right. And also, Akhan's Run is the card.
Yeah.
In the unworld.
Yeah.
Flavor text actually spawned 2 real-life Magic cards.
Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy.
Which is pretty impressive for an Ice Age rare.
Yeah, for an Ice Age rare to spawn 2 individual cards and a creature type by itself, that's pretty good.
That's quite the pedigree I think you got there. So we're going to move on here to number 3, which very well may be on someone else's list as we get to this point. For number 3, it's a little card from Ravnica. Happens to be an invitational card. Greatness at any cost is Dark Confidant's flavor text.
Did you see, I think someone tweeted you they have it tattooed on them?
Wow. And
I think it was on their arm.
Nice. And I can certainly see it happening, right? I mean, it's amazing. It's, as a sort of an idiom, I think it's great. As a thought, as what you're willing to do. The card really shows it. The effect is amazing. What would you do to get ahead? What would you pay? And Dark Confidant at any cost wants greatness. And of course, Bob Maher is
the Dark Confidant.
Is Dark Confidant himself. So that was amazing.
It was my number 5.
Nice.
When you can, a lot of mine on my list, they got a lot of space to work with. You don't got a lot of space to work with on Dark Confidant. You got 4 words. You got 1 line. And when you can do stuff like this on Dark Confidant, or some of the classic 1-word flavor texts, like heal on Word of Command or catch on Lava Axe,
Or we on flying
right,
carpet.
We on flying carpet. We.
Whee!
Yeah. When you've got very little space to work with, restriction does breed creativity, and greatness at any cost has just outlived everything in terms of what you would think of as a flavor text on a card that's already so iconic, right? It's already, Dark Confidant is already high on people's lists of best art, best card, best creature, and then to have a flavor text this good on it is just a cherry on top.
Like, how good is this flavor text? It survived the art change.
Yeah.
Okay, and
That's tough to do.
That's really difficult, and I don't know if that's actually happened with any invitational card that's been reprinted, other than Dark Confidant, because again, that line is so super powerful. Aaron, what is your number 3?
So number 3 is a phrase that means a lot to me, and I have certainly used in my personal life to kind of get back on track. You know, I think that we as people, we tend to remember things differently than how they really happened, where, you know, you find yourself mourning a friendship that was lost or mourning a relationship that was lost, and you think of it for how you wanted it to be. But then the reality hits you of it was nothing like that. And ultimately, you'll never miss what you never had, which is Wand of Denial. Wow. And we all do things like that. We're like, God, I really miss this. Sometimes you're single and you're having a really hard time finding somebody else. And you're like, God, I really miss this ex. Everything was great. And you really think about it and you're like, I can't miss a great relationship because we didn't have a great relationship. You're remembering it for the fantasy. You're remembering it through these sort of rose-colored glasses. And I use this phrase to sometimes keep myself in check when I start to want things that I ultimately really never even had. I just remembered them a certain way, or I wanted them to be something else. And this has come up in my mind and in my life at various points. And so this phrase means a lot to me.
Human memory is imperfect, and we experience a lot of what's called rosy retrospective. And I used to refer to this as what's called fun dip theory. There's an episode of In Contention called Fun Dip Theory. Whereas when you were 5 years, you remember when you were 5 years old, Fun Dip was great, and now when you try Fun Dip, it is atrocious. Mm-hmm. And turns out it was atrocious back then too. You just were 5 and didn't have an education yet, so you didn't know anything.
I mean, you could use the wand as like a fun dip stick. Look at that wand. You could just dip it in a little sugar.
And it's this flavor text nicely wraps up that whole idea into a nice little package there. And it's definitely that one wasn't on my radar, but I like that one a lot.
That was really nice. So what is your number 3, Ruben?
Fobolthup had always hated crowds.
Wow.
Totally lost from Gate Crash. Look, Lurgoyf spawns 2 cards. It spawned a creature type. Totally lost. Just the flavor text and the art alone spawned this cult hero of Magic for Magic players. Who is this guy in the art who's so sad? He's adorable. I want plushies of that.
Yeah.
I want to know more. I want more people like that, and then reprint cards print cards like Jeering Homunculus in Conspiracy Take the Crown that have similar names and similar things happening.
Right.
Fobolthup had a full story arc on Walk the Plains, right? It just took over the most iconic Magic the Gathering documentary series for 5 episodes just because plushies were available. And oh, by the way, plushies, right? So when you can create something that is so iconic that you can start selling stuffed animals or at least dolls of that character, I would be interested to know the number of Fobolthups that are in the world versus and owned and purchased, as opposed to the number of individual Planeswalker pop figurines owned by people. And I bet Fobolthup is right there with a Johnny, right there with Nissa. Maybe not as many Nicol Bolas, but it's right there in terms of popularity for this character that has no backstory. Right? Wizards didn't even see this coming.
And there have been other homunculi. It wasn't like this was the first time, and people were like, "We've never seen this before." You've had other creatures like this to latch onto.
Yeah. And somehow this one just struck a nerve with everyone, literal everyone. I can't think of anyone that's I hate the Fobolthup thing. It's like, it doesn't matter. It's on this card that's totally irrelevant, that no one has ever used ever. It's just such a weird thing to have happen, that the flavor text has lived way past the shelf life of a gate crash comic.
Basically, David Palumbo killed it. Like, he actually he created that. Like, it's cute and it's vulnerable, and there's fear, and there's the feeling of being lost is clearly like it is emoted so well that you get an instant connection with this poor little creature and what's wrong and what happened, little football. You come here, buddy. I'm gonna give you a hug. Everything's gonna be okay. Like. You want to help and take care of the little dork.
It is weird because there have been so many little cute animals in Magic already, but this is the one. Everything came together somehow, some way for this one.
It was great. So let's move on here to number 2. Ruben, what is your number 2?
Step 1, find your cousin. Step 2, get your cousin in the canon.
Mm-hmm.
Step 3, find another cousin.
And we got to go with the Dieter Lizzie version.
This was my number 4.
Yeah. No, of course. There was this Destiny art. This is when it premiered. And then, even after the art change, the flavor text stayed for 8th or 9th or whenever they reprinted it.
Yeah.
So number 2 is fodder cannon. It's got to be. It has to be fodder cannon.
It's amazing.
And it's so funny.
Aaron?
This one is just like, it's just hilarious. And it fits goblins perfectly again.
No, it fits amazing. Aaron, you said this was one of your previous...
It's my number 4, yeah.
Nice. And why is that?
I don't normally like red cards, but this is just one of those cards where you just can't help but laugh. Like, it's just so it's so tied to goblins. Like, it's such a goblin thing to do. Yeah. You would never see like an elf saying this. You would never see a zombie saying this. You would never see any other tribe, I don't think, in Magic that would say this. And it's something you can picture. It's just so silly. It fits the card, and I just love it. It's delightful.
There was an honorary red card. It's not itself red.
Right, it's an artifact.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an artifact, and that's great. And this wasn't my number 5, by the way. This was one of the...
We got them all. There we go.
Yeah, this was one of the... it's higher on somebody's list, and I can definitely see why it's number 2 for you, Ruben, because it's such a great comedic setup. I love the original, Dieter Lizzie art. They kept the flavor text in the new one, I think just because it's so great, it doesn't need that context.
There would have been a riot had they not kept that flavor. They'd been like, how do you remove the flavor text from this card?
Yeah.
What did you do? Why would you do this?
Right.
Aaron, what is your number 2?
My number 2 is continuing the trend of cards meaning a lot to me. Wand of Denial means a lot to me. This next phrase is become my personal motto. Death is no excuse to stop working. Phyrexian Reclamation.
Nice.
That's a great one.
It's just so great, and the card is everything. And really, it's true. We think of things in this game. The graveyard, for many people is sort of where cards go that you're not going to use anymore. And there's sort of this limitation of, well, my creature's dead. I guess I'm never going to see it again. I'm never going to get any use out of it. Oh, well, better find another creature. And then there are those of us that are going, oh, no. You still got work to do. Like, you're coming back. You need to finish what you started. That's no excuse. And again, it's just one of those little motivational phrases that I say. If I'm not feeling well, it's like you got to still record the show. If there's ever something I don't want to do, I will just sometimes say to myself, "Death is no excuse to stop working," and gets me through the day.
That's fantastic. My number 2 is sort of one of those like. You're there to kind of, it's a very powerful measure. It's a way to kind of pick yourself up. It's sort of a pep me up type thing. It's sort of a BA type flavor text. Mm-hmm. Someday, someone will best me, but it won't be today. And it won't be you. Last Word from Darksteel has a wonderful, again, of all the different ones, and there's plenty I was looking at, such as like Remand and Urtai has a great flavor text that's just, that's it, question mark. There's a lot of these great, like, blue, stop your stuff, and I'm better, and nothing you can do matters, and blah, blah, blah. But this one to me is just like the ultimate, like, shutdown of, nope, not today, maybe someday, absolutely not right now. And I think that's great.
Yeah, that's a great one. It was on my list of 20. Obviously, it's so iconic. And then, of course, like the tweet storm that I was coming out with in preparation for this show, where I was trying to gin up some support for people watching. And I said, Mr. Orange, it won't be Mr. When I was tweeting the last word one, it was like, someday someone will best me, but it won't be today, and it won't be Mr. Orange.
Nice.
Yeah, when I was tweeting out, trying to red zone up this show a little bit. But yeah, that one's a great one. Very iconic. Very blue mage. Perfect kind of flavor text for a card that at the time was super new. There were never cards that couldn't be countered by spells or abilities.
Right.
And yeah, just everything came together perfectly for this one.
That was sweet. And it also feels like a very Aaron Campbell-y card. Very, very Campbellish, if you will.
Yeah.
Throwing of the gauntlet and whatnot. So, Ruben, what is your number one favorite flavor text?
He traded sand for skins, skins for gold, gold for life. In the end, he traded life for sand. Afari Tales. Squandered resources from Visions is... So, like I said, I had a couple of check marks I wanted everything to have happen. I wanted something that, like, for me was super emotive and iconic for me personally. I also wanted to include stuff that spawned other flavor texts, cards, creature types, had a lasting impact on the game. And this flavor text directly impacted the creation of the card Trading Post, where you trade sand for skins, skins for gold, gold for life, and life for sand. That is, it follows what the flavor text of Squandered Resources is, which is kind of insane. And also, I wanted to at least have, and beyond that, the entire Afari Tales saga for flavor texts in Mirage is something we don't really see anymore, and I'm sad about that because I'm an old man. But definitely, cards like Chariot of the Sun.
This is
there's a lot of cards.
Love Song of Night and Day type stuff. Is what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly that kind. All of the Love Song of Night and Day, Afari Tales, the things that people come back to. Sarpadian Empires Volume 7 or whatever the number is, that are included on lots of flavor texts. And Afari Tales certainly appears all over the place. And this line in particular, I don't know why it's so good. It's so personal for me, but I really enjoy the way that it just rolls off the tongue, and it did have a lasting impact within Magic. So that's why I mean, when I was building this list, it was really tough. I was like, I got this list of 20, but I immediately put Squandered Resources at number 1.
Nice.
That's what it meant to me.
Aaron, what was your number 1?
I kind of did the same thing as Ruben. When we first started making this list, I immediately knew what my number 1 was going to be, and then I kind of filled in the gaps after this. But this is flavor text I've loved for a long time. I love sort of the quiet authority and even dominance behind it. I stepped out. I did not step down. Volrath the Fallen. It's just so gangsta. Like, just to sort of assert yourself like that and be like, again, this is something you could also apply to your daily life. Just because I logged off doesn't mean you won. Just because I chose not to respond to what someone was saying to me doesn't mean I took it, or doesn't mean you're right. Just sort of saying to yourself, like, I took a break. I'm not dead, And I love everything about this. Like, it just drips. And Volrath is still one of my favorite villains in the Magic universe, but it's just so badass. Every time you read it, there's so many ways you can read it too.
Right.
You can emphasize different words, you can do whatever, and it's just so, it sees, it's so good.
That's awesome. I like that one. So
That's a great one.
I feel it's funny because I feel like all three of us at this point have been, and this includes me, was, I know what my number 1 is. Here's my number 1. Let's figure out the rest.
Yep.
So at least I got that one down. And this was on one of my top 100 favorite cards of all time. The flavor text gets me every time. I absolutely love it. From the moment I read this card, it just gets me. From Weatherlight, Gerard says, but it doesn't do anything. And Hannah says, no, it does nothing for No Rod. No Rod is so good.
My number 5.
Oh my God, yes.
I feel so bad for missing that one.
Dude, I can't. It doesn't do anything. It does nothing. It's so good.
Nothing.
I love that.
That's another one you have to read a couple times to really like get it. Like, yeah.
And the way it works mechanically, and there's the story with the characters.
It's so good.
And
it's such a perfect one.
It's a perfect turn of phrase in terms of what it's trying to do and what it means and how it works. And man, Null Rod is just, it's a terrific card. Super cool ever since it came out. And it's great that it is still relevant even today.
Yeah.
That's
a fabulous choice for number one. I feel so stupid. I'm just going to Day of Judgment myself. I don't care if the thing is on the board.
Wow.
That is an inexcusable oversight on my part.
Even I had it. Yeah.
No, I'm just so stupid. I can't.
Aaron, come on now. That's rough. I mean, as we got up there.
At this point, I can only apologize for not having Null Rod on my list. Obviously, that's the greatest thing ever.
It's pretty insane. Let's see here. So, Aaron, again, I think we have a very personal list. Ruben. This one was a lot more personal than your usual.
It was, yeah. Well, it's very difficult to spike mind flavor texts, right?
True.
Like, it's very difficult to get the tournament bracket of flavor text because they're so inherently Vorthos, right?
See, I disagree. I disagree. I think that you could have. I think that there's
metrics I could have followed.
No, I just think that there's a large enough pool. Like, I know that there's been some lightning bolt texts that aren't necessarily there. There's a really long one, I think, from M10, I think it is, and I think that, I think that, and I'm trying to think how to word this. I don't want to say if you wanted to, like, to say that you didn't. It's not personal, like you personally, but if someone wanted to, like, if you wanted to go through, like, top 10 lists, or if you wanted to go through, say, MTG Goldfish, I think you could find some gems in some competitive cards if you wanted to limit yourself.
But what I meant by that was, trying to have the, like, flavor texts fighting against flavor texts in terms of, like, what a flavor text can do, and I'm not talking about competitive Magic at this point. I'm talking about how Lurgoyf spawned off other cards, how Totally Lost spawned off this cult following, that kind of thing. And I got a few of those, but then towards the end, the bottom of my list is just like it's only personal stuff. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think that everybody had. This was certainly a little bit more out of the wheelhouse of how I usually treat these lists. But yeah, I definitely enjoyed putting them all together and weighing them, and checking and balancing, and trying to get down to 10. Absolutely. I do have to say, Aaron, that not having a Liliana quote in any of your 10 cards is a little rough. I was
expecting Mrs. Vess.
I was expecting Killing Wave.
I don't like Killing Wave's text. I don't think it's that great.
The new Mutilate from Garrick versus Liliana.
The one where it's like, at the worst, it's like a quick death. Either way, I'm happy.
No, the Mutilate one is something along the lines of Liliana soon figured out that she loved the moment where screams turned into squeals or something like that.
That really didn't affect it. There haven't been many that I've really liked,
Right.
So I like a lot of Liliana art, but I don't necessarily like a lot of her quotes.
Right. Really? And the last thing I'll say about our Day of Judgment is, this is me personally. I'll take most of the brunt of this because I'm the red mage on the program. But no Jaya Ballard Task Mage quotes is pretty bad. Like,
I actually held back though on Braids codes. Braids has so many. There's one. There's a snake. I don't remember the name of it, but it basically says something. She's like, it's a slithering monster. I have to respect that. It's just so great.
Yeah, it feels like you're more aligned on the Braids end than the Liliana end. Even though I feel like there might be some crossover there, I feel like
there's certainly crossover, but Braids is definitely more chaotic evil as opposed to either neutral or lawful evil.
Braids also had the "don't let your mind wander because it might not come back" or something to that effect. Like, so good,
She kind of has that tinge of crazy, is what I would put in there. Just to drop whole crap, which makes some sense. So that was terrific. And for those who are watching here, please leave your thoughts, your comments, your favorite flavor text, and give us some reasoning. Don't just give us some flavor text. Right. If you want to get a
personal stories,
show us your work.
Yeah, show your work.
Show your work is good.
$50 gift certificate to coolstuffinc.com could be yours in next week's flavor text. That pretty much winds up our top 10 flavor texts. Thank you very much for joining us, Ruben.
Thank you.
Thanks for hanging out, Aaron.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you guys are great. We want to move on here to our final slide. And that was our top 10 favorite flavor text. We want to hear what you think, and we'll celebrate it by giving a select commenter a $50 gift certificate to CoolStuffInc.com. So I want to thank our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com, my co-hosts, Aaron Campbell and Ruben Bressler, and you guys for watching. I hope you support us at patreon.com/magicmics. Visit our website at magicmicspodcast.com that exists thanks to our Patreon supporters. Or follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe, do everything social that tells people that we exist. Catch us online at twitch.tv/magicmics, on Twitter at magicmicscast, on Reddit at reddit.com/r/magicmics, on Facebook at facebook.com/magicmics. Talk to us privately at magicmicspodcast@gmail.com. Follow the audio-only podcast at magicmicspodcast.libsyn.com, or find us on iTunes, or join us here next week for another top 10 episode of Magic Mics. Good night, everybody.